During my reading of Son of the Revolution by Liang Heng, I was very surprised to see some striking similarities between the ideas of the Cultural Revolution and an event that happened very early on in the United States history with the Salem witchcraft trials. The Salem trials had an aspect of you have to sell people out to gain your own life and your own freedom. This is echoed very, very heavily throughout the book, as Liang Heng has to make several big sacrifices of exposing his mother, showing the crimes of his father, all to protect his family, because the Communist Party had instilled this idea of even if you bring suffering upon your family in the short term by making all these crimes and allegations and posting them in public and exposing them to ridicule, the fact that the crimes were being brought to light was in itself an act of sacrifice that would please the party, and that by suffering enough, the freedom of the crimes of the past would be brought out, where you could function again in normal Chinese society, even at a lower caste. The idea of family is also one of the big challenges that Hang has to manage throughout the book. As I mentioned earlier, very, very early on in his childhood, he loses the mother that he cares very, very deeply for because the Communist Party believes that she is anti-party for making a criticism that had earlier been suggested to make. This comes up again a few years later on into Hang's life when his father is also accused of being a threat to Chinese society, and Hang has to expose him by thinking of anything he can say and posting it out in public. This is a big struggle with several Chinese citizens, the vast majority of which because of the idea of filial piety, which was the Confucian idea of the child's life is to support the parent, and that devotion to the family is the most important thing that someone can do. This clashes with the Communist Party because the Communist Party also says submission to the Communist Party is what gives your life meaning. So when the two ideals have to fight each other, it ends up being that the Communist Party wins because of the just worship and love of Mao Zedong, combined with the violence and fear that the raids and the Red Guard would instill, to where even deeply held values such as keeping your family safe and serving them honorably have to take a fall to I'll make something up, because if I don't sacrifice them, then I can't go to middle school, my sisters have to struggle. And even then, after doing everything that's expected, the brand of having family that was deemed not acceptable follows Hang throughout the vast, vast majority of his adult life, and continues just about up until the end of the book when he marries Judith and is able to move and travel more freely in China because of the exoticism of him being married to a foreign wife. Part of the reason that there was this clash is because of the idealization of Mao Zedong as the leader of China. This is something that came again because of a mix of his own charisma along with propaganda, where people were being force-fed the information of Mao is good, communism is good, anything that is against that is inherently a problem for us. Which is why Hang mentions early on in his childhood that the children thought that it was Mao's personal gift that they received fruit at one of the institutions where he was staying at, and that the idea of being disrespectful to Mao by breaking a rule was absolutely heartbreaking, and therefore being absolved of that was one of the happiest days that he ever had. This idea of the cult of Mao transcends beyond just being thankful and happy to have a certain leader into this deep fanaticism, such as when the children all go through the same marches that the Red Army did while fighting Chiang Kai-shek, and just the tears of joy. Hang mentions that Mao Zedong drives by at one point in a van, and some of the children get to shake his hands, and even though only a small handful got to, children were shaking the hands of the people who had shaken hands with Mao Zedong, and it continued to be passed along like this, just out of the pure worship of the fact that you got to touch basically the god of China. So, combined with this, the big thing in the reading is that the Communist Party was completely overwhelming, and that even though there was massive brutality and millions that lost their lives and jobs and any sort of wealth in the Cultural Revolution, the fact that the sacrifices were for the benefit of the party were just okay, and it was expected, and if not, you were punished for it.